Well, good morning and welcome to the second event in this two-part series, Owning the Global Cyber Podium Series, presented by BlackBerry. My name is Ian Mclean, and I'm the President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment just to acknowledge that we do live and work on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples as we seek a renewed relationship based on a foundation of mutual understanding and respect. As participants in today's virtual event, we are coming together as one. We believe everyone is free to be their true self and receive the same respect and opportunity regardless of age, ethnicity, gender, culture, identity, sexual orientation, beliefs, or language. We hope you'll join us in fostering a positive environment here today to ensure a safe and welcoming space for all. Today's discussion will focus on the opportunity and the imperative of Canada being a global leader in the cybersecurity sector. More specifically, we'll be talking about talent. There is a worldwide cyber talent shortage due to the soaring demand and the importance of this sector in the digital economy. Today, we'll discuss what's needed to fill that talent gap and how to build a diverse and robust cybersecurity workforce in Canada to stay competitive. But first, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor of today's events. Without their support, as always, Chamber events and this type of program would not be possible. So a big thank you to our title sponsor, BlackBerry, our prestige sponsor, Rogers, our gold sponsors, Google, KPMG, and the University of Waterloo, and our bronze sponsor today, OpenText, and our event sponsor, Reese Informatica. Please join us in thanking these incredible sponsors and partners by adding a thumbs up or a thank you in the chat. We'll be taking a coffee and networking break halfway through today's main stage program, and we encourage you to visit the expo section during that time to video live chat with many of today's partners. A reminder that if you have any questions or require any support during today's event, you can visit the help desk in the expo area to speak with a live chamber representative at any time. Now we have lots to cover today, so let's get started with our first two speakers of the day. Our first speaker joining us this morning, both from BlackBerry, but the first one is Neha Ray, as he's the recruitment manager with BlackBerry. Neha has been with BlackBerry for about 2.5 years and is responsible for managing end-to-end recruitment cycle for full-time hires across all the business units in North America. This includes recruitment for BlackBerry subsidiaries, including Cylance, QNX software systems, etc., from intake discussions, interviewing, offering submissions, and confirming start dates for new hires. Neha is also responsible for running the employee referral program for North America and representing BlackBerry at international job fairs and conferences. And our second speaker is Tyler Towns. Tyler works at BlackBerry as the Director of Security Program Management. His team is responsible for various secure development programs, as well as security communications and various aspects of business operations within the product security organization. In the past, Tyler's been responsible for vetting mobile malware, operating BlackBerry's monthly Android security patching program, and has led the product security incident response team. Please join me in welcoming Neha and Tyler.
Thank you, Ian. It's a pleasure to be on this event. And yes, we are very excited to share our perspective.
Well, it's been great. We had a chat just to get ready for this, and I'm not sure we could fit all the questions that you could answer into the time that we have. But we wanted to get a good start, and I would say I've been at the Chamber for 12 years. BlackBerry has been a huge part of our community for long, predating that. We know that there's been changes, and the focus of BlackBerry has changed into being the global leader in security in digital, and whether it's digital security in your car and connecting with your mobile phone. So we are very blessed and very fortunate that your colleague John and the BlackBerry team have understand obviously how important this is, not only as from a big picture, 30,000 foot view, but how it actually impacts businesses, and in particular small and medium-sized businesses. So thank you both for joining us today. And part of today's discussion is around, we do have a talent gap, and we talked about this before. There's a talent gap in just about every business sector, including cybersecurity. As we come out of COVID, it actually existed before we went in, but cyber in particular, there's a high demand for the talent, and it's tough to find the people to fill those roles. So the importance of having the right people in the companies that are experts in cyber, and for businesses to know what vendors they should be working with who have that expertise, is pretty important. So let's get started. Maybe I think it would be important or might be helpful for our listeners and the people are watching to give some context around the roles that you have at BlackBerry and how that's important, some of the challenges that you're finding with your respective areas. So I think I'll start with Tyler. Do you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm part of the product security organization, and our role is making sure, at a high level, our role is making sure that we're building a secure product, deploying a secure product, and maintaining that product securely. Myself, I handle a lot of my team handles a lot of the program management, business operations aspects of that. So we have various programs looking to do risk management, quality measurement. We have those communications programs, making sure that we inform our customers. And you kind of hit on an interesting point before, right? So we've always been really security conscious as a company. And as we've pivoted, we've started to focus on security product, which is a little bit different than secure product. And now we have secure product that also serves security functionality. So we've had to branch out our own operations to start serving customers with knowledge around, if how our products perform. Not only are they secure, but how do they perform? Do we need to augment them? How can we deploy them securely? A lot of knowledge transfer opportunities there. And then, myself handle a lot of the kind of general business, supporting our legal team, supporting customer inquiries, and a lot of different things in between.
Okay. Neha.
We have been working with different kinds of business units here in BlackBerry, and I personally feel cybersecurity in general is a very dynamic industry. It's very young and it's growing right now, and very agile. So, same goes with BlackBerry. So we work on different requirements, and there is always a sudden change, or there is a sudden ask with regards to change in the requirement. So that always keeps us on our toes, and it's very challenging. So finding right talent in itself is a big challenge here, because our requirements are pretty niche. At the same time, the kind of people we look for is not just the alignment with the competencies that we are looking for. It's way beyond that. So it's about how agile a resource is, or how keen you are to learn different things, or how much extra do you push yourself. So it's so many parameters that we consider when we recruit someone. And as a recruiter, I personally feel whenever I connect with any resource, I always check where does an applicant's interest lie, and I try to align. And if I feel that there is something that we have in common, then we move forward with the conversation. So it's challenging, definitely, but at the same time, I'm glad that Canada is such a great market, as well as US. Like, I recruit for North America, so we have so many other players right now in the market, which is making our task really competitive. And given the kind of scenario we are into right now, it's little competitive, because remote work is again a competitive differentiator for most of the applicants right now when they apply for jobs. So it's very important to understand at the beginning what they are looking for, at the same time what kind of resource we are looking for. So we have to describe that career roadmap, how it looks like, and bringing right talent, so that the purpose of bringing in someone is not just filling a position, but bringing in someone who can sustain in the long run. So that should be the approach, and that is what we are keeping in our mind whenever we are recruiting. But yeah, it's little challenging, finding right kind of people, uh, considering the kind of shortage we have right now because of the travel restrictions. Canada is a place wherein lots of immigrants come in, and it's easier. It's a great market to recruit, but it's throwing a lot of challenges at this point of time, for sure.
Maybe that's a good segue to the next question I have, and this is, you both touched on a couple of examples. So I'm gonna use an example. You talked about the cybersecurity is growing, it's dynamic, there's a lot of need for it. You talk about the challenges in finding enough people for even the role jobs that you have at BlackBerry. And remember, this is also with every other company, eCent. I mean, there's lots of companies in this space, either consulting companies or practical companies like BlackBerry. So there's challenges there. I guess, what are some of the things that you're seeing, the trends with that shortage? How are you trying to get around that? Is it looking for more women and newcomers? I mean, how are you trying to find the talent out there? Because the traditional way of finding it doesn't work when there's so many people looking for a very small pool. So maybe talk a little bit about some of those trends in the recruiting and what you're doing as a company, because I think actually if this is cyber, that's something that all companies are dealing with right now.
That's very true. I'm sure every sector is struggling with this right now. And personally, I love recruitment because I consider it more like a puzzle, finding the right candidate for a right job. So in current scenario, as I said, that hiring trend always shift as per the scenario or the situation we are into. So right now there is definitely a shift. So we have to build up new strategies, and the strategies that we are working on right now, as you said, that's very correct. Like, going with the traditional approach of finding resources is not something that is working out really well. So we have to go, no, look at non-traditional approaches. Like, there are lots of passive job seekers. They are not very active. They are not very actively looking for jobs right now, but they are open to listen to new kind of opportunities. So we have to find such people. So we have to look at beyond LinkedIn, beyond job boards. We have to find out where they are hanging out, and place to connect with. And it could be through Facebook Messenger, or it could be through Reddit, or it could be anywhere else. So this is how we look at and connect with talent. Diversity has always been the prime focus of BlackBerry, and we are trying to work a lot on that area. Canada being a very diverse workforce, it has always been a great pool for us to hire here in Canada versus US. But right now, because of this resource crunch that we all are dealing with, it's definitely throwing challenge. But yeah, we are doing something internally too. We have a very robust co-op program. So every co-op who comes here, we try our best. Like, if they're doing really well, and if they have an interest, getting retained in the organization, we try our best to find good opportunities for them within the company itself. At the same time, we promote a lot of internal mobility, because that not only helps in the retention of employees in the long run, but at the same time it gives new projects and more confidence to people who are already part of the organization. So that's second thing that we are emphasizing a lot on. And third, like BlackBerry, there are other security companies also. We might be hitting on the same pool. We might be reaching out the same set of applicants every day, right? So employee referral is something which is also working very effectively here. So we are doing various programs within our employee referral area internally. So that's really helpful. That's bringing us a lot of talent. And last, I feel that it's very it's very common. Like, as a recruiter, we connect with applicant, but the moment they get rejected, we forget them, and then we start looking for new talent when new requirement comes up. So I feel re-engagement is something that is very required, especially right now. And more than offering what job or what opportunity you have, it's very important to understand someone's aspiration. Giving them that, giving respect to their choice is more important. So we are, as a team, like here in North America, we are following these strategies right now. We are re-engaging. At the same time, we are working very closely with each other to find out, like, if someone has an expertise, say in a particular region, we are taking each other's help a lot, which is really helpful in a way. So these are few strategies which we are using right now, and I'm pretty sure strategies, I mean, it will keep changing as the time will change. So yeah.
Okay. And very helpful. I think in engaging those that you may not have chosen this time, that may not have been a right fit. That's just wise in the current talent environment. Aside from cyber, that's just a tip that is a very wise and good one. Listen, Tyler, the importance of the product side and the security. I guess the question, we're talking about talent because and we'll come back to that in your area, but the why security is so important is it bears to at least have a comment. I remember having one of your colleagues on our radio show with Greg DeRocher, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And he was going to a hacking conference in New York City, and gave the example of being able to hack into, and they did this intentionally and everyone knew it was going to happen, but he hacked into someone's car and took control of a car through a kettle, because it was all Bluetooth enabled. And I mean, the point of that was you're dealing with in lot QNX and BlackBerry and secure, mobile phones to connect to your car. I mean, these security things have practical real world implications. And maybe to connect it back to the HR part, you need good people because you got to test those things out. And that's going to be ever changing. And it's only going to get more of the connected, the connected car, the connected world. Maybe draw those things together of the importance of the security and the need for that talent. There could be some pretty exciting careers because you're doing some pretty cool stuff with BlackBerry, QNX, and all the next generation security.
Absolutely. I think you tied together a lot of great ideas there. So, security is no longer a back office exercise, right? It's customer facing. It's in the news, in the media, in Congress. It's everywhere. So, one of the trends that I see is the fact that, as a hiring manager, we're hiring for a lot of diverse roles that didn't used to be there 5-10 years ago. So we're looking for everything from analysts and architects and engineers, program managers, communicators, product managers, everything. And a lot of these roles end up being customer facing, whether that's through, written communication or preparing customer collateral or, getting on phone calls with customers to help them either understand the solution, understand the security posture of the solution, or, help work through, security problems that they're facing in their own business. Maybe it's not specifically product related, but, how can we help you solve business problems that you have? And, that's really the change that I've seen, especially in the last few years, of people really becoming business focused, and security becoming a business enabler, which is great for security orgs, trying to, highlight the importance of the work that we do, and really bring a light to it. And I think as, being a security practitioner, it really helps you feel a real sense of value and the importance of your work, when it's recognized at that level. And hopefully that helps us attract people into the roles because they're becoming more and more important.
So, and I think what I hear you saying is that connection with the customer, and you talk about integration of both the product and the security, has a real world practical part. You're going to have to deal with a variety of people with your customers. And this could be for a smaller, a company that deals with computer and software, etc. With a small business, you still have to be connected to the end user and understand the technology, which is the BlackBerry component of that. Does that mean that integration and product to business development thing, does that take a different type of person, like the people that you're working with? Like, and I say this with the greatest respect. And sometimes you say the computer people in the bank, they think, well, they're not very engaging. I don't think that was ever true, but that was what it looked like before. Does it take a different type of person to still be able to understand and do the technical part of it and still be able to communicate with the customer?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the unicorn everyone wants, is the deeply technical person with the A+ communication and interpersonal skills, right? And we have a lot of those people, which we're really lucky and fortunate to have. But absolutely, I mean, so for our company, we serve everything from small and medium-sized business up to very, very large enterprise. And it definitely takes, we do a lot of communicating with my team, and definitely trying to make information consumable for different levels of audience is really challenging, because if you're communicating with, a big bank in the US who has a 1,000-person security workforce, versus, maybe a smaller, medium-sized enterprise who might just have a couple of generalists as opposed to 1,000 specialists, it's very different. It's very challenging. So yes, absolutely, having those people that can translate, help folks walk through a problem, those are incredible people that we definitely want to have on our team.
Okay, and maybe I want to draw that a little bit with you, Neha. We've come. I'm resisting talking about COVID, but we have to look at it at least as if it's sort of in the rearview mirror. the impact the pandemic's had on recruiting for BlackBerry, because I think that would be similar for many companies.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you see that impacting recruitment moving forward? I mean, one of the obvious things is I know there are companies, and some of my staff don't live in the same community anymore, and that's like, well, with a computer, it doesn't really matter where you are now. I think that may change a little bit as people start to get back to an office, but
Mm-hmm.
there's more flexibility. So things like that have obviously changed for everyone. And I guess the other part was, you think about your recruitment strategies where you may have been, you need to have the technical degree on cybersecurity or computer science. Is there a knowledge or an understanding that what you need is the right type of person? Because a lot of this would be technical, that Tyler and his specific group would educate once you're hired. So has it loosened up the technical or the educational requirements? You say, I need good people that can be adaptable and sort of adapt to what is a very fast changing landscape. So, but maybe put those two things together. How has it changed during the pandemic, and has it actually changed what you're looking for?
Pandemic definitely impacted us. Like everyone is impacted, but I'll talk from the beginning. Like when it started, job cuts, layoffs, so many things happened, and so many job seekers were actively looking for jobs. So at that point of time, it was easier to recruit, I would say, because we had ample talent pool available at that point of time. But suddenly there was a change, and I'm very glad that today it's job seekers job market, and they have so many opportunities to explore, which is really good. Every time I speak with an applicant, they have 2 3 offers, which is really good that job market has came back to normal and people are getting more opportunities. But it has definitely thrown a lot of challenges on recruiters like us, because there was a shortage of resources. Like even now, like we don't have ample talent pool right now. There is so much of travel restriction, which limited people from coming to Canada or to any other country, which definitely cut down our talent pool. So that was one thing. And second thing which we experienced was candidate experience. Creating candidate experience when you are interviewing someone in person and interviewing someone virtually, or creating the whole onboarding process virtually, is very different. So when we started, it was a little tough. It took us time to adapt to this new virtual thing, virtual world. And so was it for the applicants. But we understood that during this period of time, the only thing that can help us sail through the situation is communication. That is very much required, because the kind of impact we create when we meet someone in person and when we are meeting someone virtually are two different things. So that somewhere or the other helped us a lot. But yeah, I'm glad that things are going little normal, and we are looking forward to going back to office. But yeah, that is again that might cause little friction in the beginning, because everyone has their own choice, and I truly respect everyone's choice, because there are people who are comfortable working from home, there are people who would like to come back to office. So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, definitely, as I mentioned in my first point, like remote work is definitely going to be a competitive differentiator, not just for us, even for other companies, I'm pretty sure. Now I'll talk a little bit about the degrees or the technical qualification. So yes, to some extent, I feel that it's required. It's good to have a degree, and I do focus on that. And I agree with the hiring teams when they talk about it, because as a minimum requirement they look for. But as far as entering into a cybersecurity industry is concerned, I don't think so. We need any special kind of certification or degree to be into a cybersecurity. We have so many opportunities, and we have so many people with a different background. So you enter the industry, you learn different kinds of trades in security, and then you have so many things to explore. So I give importance to degrees, but at the same time, I feel the skill set, the expertise someone is bringing on the table is more important than emphasizing just on the certification or uh, the course that they
So,
have
so
pursued.
So problem solving capacity and looking at the challenge versus saying, do you have the technical degree? Because one presumes if you've got the right skill set and
Hmm.
approach to because it's fast changing, the Tylers of the world in BlackBerry can say, here's the technical part, and put them to work and kind of reskill for the task at hand.
Okay, let me put it this way. So the only advantage which I have seen people who come with degrees, like most of these schools, they offer core programs. So it's easier for them to grab that opportunity and, gain that expertise 3 months. I have seen
Yeah.
co-ops, like I mentioned that, we absorb lots of co-ops here in BlackBerry. So that is one opportunity most of the people who are pursuing a specific degree they have over other people who do not have any such degree. But I always feel if they have the experience, they have the expertise that we are looking for, we should not bar anyone from applying or getting interviewed for a certain role or getting selected for any role. That should not be
Okay.
the deciding criteria. I personally feel that's my thought.
Perfect. Okay, we can talk for hours, but I'm already getting the 10-minute warning, so we got a few more questions to get through. This is a fascinating conversation. Listen, and I think one of the points you made, which is important, is the remote work option, at least in part, is going to be, I think, table stakes for any business now, whether it's the BlackBerries of the world or a SME that's in this space helping small business, or the business, the end user themselves. So that's an important point. Listen, um, Tyler, let's talk a little bit about the talent development side as my phone's ringing. Um, we as we grow the next generation of talent in the sector, what like that could take some time. We're already talking about, we're encouraging more women and immigrants and others to get into the
Hmm.
sector, but that's not going to happen overnight. So Tyler, as we look at developing the talent that's already in place, what are the things that you can do to and how are you working in your own team to solve the current talent shortage?
Absolutely. So I'll echo Neha on the importance of the co-op program, and despite not having experience on paper, as experienced hires, we've had some incredible success with bringing in co-ops and just having them hit it out of the park. I've converted a bunch of my co-ops to full time. I started out as a co-op myself many years ago, and they haven't been able to get rid of me yet. So big fan of the co-op program. There's some really talented people that are just incredible problem solvers. Doesn't matter how old they are, how much work experience they have, they just come in and just absolutely nail it. So that's definitely a huge avenue. I'm a big fan of recruitment internally. So we have various programs set up to try and help encourage that. We do things along the lines of stretch goals and stretch projects. So we've had numerous people over the years who have reached out to us internally within the company to say, hey, I'm really curious about security. I don't have any experience. How can I get involved? And we try and work to find them an opportunity to come and partner with us. So as an example, last year we were building a new process within the security org. We had somebody who raised their hand and said, hey, I'm really curious. How do I get involved? And we said, well, what do you do? And, she was a process analyst. And we said, hey, we need process documentation. Would you be able to, work with their manager? Would we be able to grab, 4 hours every other Friday for a couple months, come on over, help us with our project. You'll get to meet all these SMEs, all these senior stakeholders within our org, and learn a heck of a lot about the business. And she really loved it. I think it was really beneficial for everyone. That was great. Within the product security organization, we have a program called the Bench program. So this is a program for us to develop our own internal talent. So who are these people in our org who are our leaders? They're really high performers. They got leadership potential. We set them up together on a project. We take people from our development team, from our engineering team, from our program management team, throw them together with one of our leaders, go off and solve a big problem in the company that we have expertise in. So it gives them an opportunity to work together. It gives them an opportunity to go and work with executives outside of their management chain elsewhere in the business, gets them a bunch of exposure. That really helps not only with their development, but with our retention of them. It's a really fun opportunity, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that. So those are our internal strategies. I'd also, keep in mind, you mentioned consulting before. I think consulting, professional services can be a uncomfortable subject for some, right? Bringing in people from outside the company to gain visibility into security challenges you're having, that can be a hard discussion, right? Letting people into the inner circle. But if you can't find the talent you're looking for, or if you're running a small team, especially a small team of generalists, eventually you're going to hit a point where you really need someone with deep SME experience. And I would encourage everyone not to be afraid to phone a friend, bring in a consultant for a period of time, help tackle those problems, and move forward.
All right. Listen, I'm getting the signal for the thing. So we got 5 minutes and 3 questions. So try and keep tight because we need to get through this. And I wanted to come back, Nia. You touched on North America and where you're recruiting from. Are there advantages of hiring in Canada now versus the States? And I think you may have touched on this, like the environment here is maybe more welcoming for a variety of different demographics, et cetera. So maybe just talk for a couple of minutes on Canada and whether it provides an advantage in terms of your hiring or for others in this space.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think Canada is a great market in terms of talent pool. We have a diverse talent pool. We have so many immigrants coming every year from different countries. So that definitely is there. Second, I feel the hassle in terms of getting visa and those kind of things is very less here in Canada, because most of the people who immigrate here, either they have the permanent resident, or they are citizen, or even for students, like they get work permit after the completion of their course. So it's easier to recruit here. There is no hassle in terms of getting providing any assistance in terms of visa. And then I feel, especially for tech talent, I think it's a great market, because we have so many talent available. I remember offering couple of applicants when they were in their home country, even before they landed here in Canada. So technical requirements are such wherein you need to upgrade yourself as and when new technologies are coming, but at the same time, certification or license is not a criteria which will decide whether you will get a job or not. Unlike other field like finance or HR business partner, there are so many field which require some kind of license or some kind of certification. So that way I feel we have good opportunity here. And even when I recruit for US, I always convince my hiring team, like, when we are not getting adequate talent pool in US, I always recommend hiring here in Canada. First of all, we have a head office here in Canada, and second, we have such talent pool here. At the same time, I feel it's cost effective to hire here in Canada. So these are few things I feel is really that makes Canada a better place to work, or better place for recruiters to hunt talent in.
Perfect. Listen, Tyler, go back to you, and then we've got one more question for both of you to kind of wrap up. Um, I mean, it doesn't take much to confuse me when it comes to technology, but I'm not the technical audience you're looking for. But when it comes to innovation and things like new tech or AI in this space, I mean that's got to be part of how you continually are evolving your security, because machine learning and being able to do some of this that is automatic and can be in place is so important. But does that both have opportunities, I presume, for new products, new development, more ability to help your end user, which in many cases is that small, medium-sized businesses. But I presume that also has challenges, because again, you're looking for more of a specific expertise within AI. Maybe talk a little bit about both the short term and long term of that. Is there challenges now and opportunities down the road?
Yeah, well, I definitely think, I mean, that's why it's part of our product strategy to focus on AI-based products. We have anti-malware, threat detection. Solutions like that are going, you install them, it takes a smaller footprint of employees to staff them. So you're saving time and money. You're able to get that capability you need without the staff that, you can't find, because it's such a rough hiring market. So that's definitely a great part of the solution. I think when we think about the kind of the broader hiring picture, I think that's really going to help, because hey, we don't have enough people to fill the seats. We may never. So we need really creative solutions like AI-based products. We can free up some of those people who were focused on those problems in the past to go off and solve other important security problems that we can't find the staff to solve, right? So it helps kind of realign resources throughout the industry and makes more efficient use of the scarce resources we have as an industry. So I think there'll be a lot of trends there. Anything that we can do to scale solutions like AI is going to be tremendously helpful in the future.
Okay, we're down to our last minute, literally our last minute, but we're going to ask a question. We're going to give you each. I'm going to extend this and give you each 1 minute. So we're going to go over by a minute. We have lots of small and medium-sized businesses that are attending today. that will also watch this, as we send it out, the link out for this program after. Maybe some advice on why the small and medium-sized sector should be a focus for companies like yours, but others in this space, and how a talent shortage impacts them. Because this is something that and one of the reasons, when we got started saying we want to do this cybersecurity series, and we'll continue to do it because it's changing so fast in the coming months, was because this was probably not well enough understood by the small businesses themselves, and then the how to get the information to them so they understand why it's so important. So maybe, there's a little bit of an HR component in there that if you don't understand as a small business, and then getting the right company that has the right expertise, and then Tyler, maybe more the practical side. Start with you, Neha.
So I work a lot with hiring sales professionals who operate primarily in SME business. So if we don't get right kind of talent, and this talent shortage is definitely impacting each and every way. Not just us, but all other people who are associated, or our clients, or everyone who we work very closely with. So during this period, I don't know how wise it would be to make a comment like this, but I would like to say that we have to keep changing our strategies as the time change, like I said earlier, so that we have enough talent pool. Because it's not this shortage of talent is not impacting just BlackBerry, but it's impacting other people or other client or everyone who's associated with the company. So the strategies that we are following right now, we need to continue with that approach, and as in time required, we might have to change that in order to create create that that create that momentum everywhere, so that we can have ample talent, not just for ourselves, but even for the other companies that are operating in this industry.
Great. Tyler.
Yeah, I think, we talked about AI before, but any of these solutions where we can help small and medium-sized business scale, because unless you're a small and medium-sized business in the security industry, you probably don't want to worry about security. You want to focus on whatever your mainline goal or value is. That's where you want to put your time and effort, and you're probably not interested in scaling out a full security team. So whether it's AI-based anti-malware, SOC as a service, managed detection and response, these really awesome offerings that are out there in the industry, helps bring tons of scale to these companies so they can focus on what they really want to focus on.
Awesome. Listen, we're out of time for this session, but I want to thank both of you for joining us this morning, Neha and Tyler. It's been an absolute pleasure. I understand now why BlackBerry is in such a great position to be a global leader in security if they've got folks like you. So thank you to the two of you and to your BlackBerry team for your continued support. I would say this has been a great way to get started and to set the stage for today's session. One thing, I don't know much. I'm not a very technical person. My staff would tell you that, but I certainly understand the importance of technology and protecting data. And so cybersecurity is important for every size of business, whether they're SMEs, large business, and in every sector. Data and protecting data, personal information in the digital economy is the whole ballgame. And so for all of us, we need to know how we're protecting that as business owners and as organization leaders. And BlackBerry is certainly the gold standard when it comes to security, and always has been. So listen, we're blessed to have BlackBerry as a partner, and we've been a great partner of our chamber for years and years and years. And so our chamber appreciates that. But we're also very lucky to have BlackBerry here in town, who have helped grow our own tech ecosystem here in Waterloo region and throughout the country and across North America. But right here, we're very thankful for the leadership that BlackBerry's already had. Listen, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time today. We're going to keep going with see you guys. We're going to keep going and keep the program moving along and go straight into our next discussion. So we're going to keep moving ahead. And so the next discussion: diversity in the cybersecurity workforce. It is it's essential, crucial to have a diverse pool of talent in this sector. It not only helps provide a unique approach to solving cybersecurity problems, but it's an important source of talent in a very tight labor market as well. We have some incredible speakers that are joining us this morning to dive into this topic. Our panelists this morning include Laura Meek, Director of Security with OpenText. Talia Parker is a privacy engineer at Google. Lisa Tetro is Senior Director of Global Security Operations with Arctic Wolf. And moderating this morning with our appreciation is Desiree Carter. She's Director IoT Smart Cities and Smart Buildings with Rogers. So please join me in welcoming Lara, Talia, Lisa, and Desiree.
Good morning, everyone. Just making sure everything is good. And thank you, Ian, for that great introduction. As he said, my name is Desiree Carter, and I'm the Director of IoT at Rogers for Business. So I'm part of a larger team that helps businesses and governments, communities adapt technology. And I'm very excited to be joining you today to really discuss and dive deep into diversity in cyber security workforce, how tech leaders, governments, and corporations are working together to shape the future of a diverse workplace. So from my experience, we're seeing that businesses are building their resilience and learning to adapt, evolve, meet employee and customer obligations in new ways. But we always need to keep in mind, no matter if it's a connected community or city or within a diverse workplace, it really starts with the people. And it's not only about installing digital interfaces in traditional infrastructure or streamlining operations. It also is about technology and utilizing data purposefully and securely to make better decisions and deliver a better quality of life for everyone. So I'm excited to dive deep into this conversation. But before we start, I'd like to give each of our panelists the chance to introduce themselves. And I'll just start with a question and you guys can jump in. So can you talk about a little bit about your career and provide some context on how you started in this sector and what you led you here today? So let's start with Talia, if you can jump in.
Thank you, Desiree. So happy to be here this morning. So I had quite the non-traditional path to this space. I actually obtained my bachelor's in business from Florida A&M University. And post, graduation, I started to kind of explore what my different career options were. And a peer mentor said to me, "Have you ever considered privacy?" And at the time, I didn't really know what it was, but I quit my job anyway and took a 4-month internship with a boutique consulting firm. And so that was where I learned all the things privacy, right? And that was all the experience that I needed to attract all of the top Big Four corporations. And so I took an opportunity to work with Deloitte for a couple years, and privacy fell under their cyber risk offering. So I also had the opportunity to learn and do a lot of security related work, and spent a few years in the consulting space. And then I went on to Nike, where I worked very closely with security in building out privacy programs and getting GDPR compliance and vendor risk management, all of those things. And then I had the opportunity to complete my master's in cybersecurity from Brown, through just wanting to make sure that I was doing my due diligence and, as I was skilling up, also making sure I covered my bases with the knowledge. And then I then went on to work with Georgia Technology Research Institute, which is like a component of the Georgia Tech University, as a security architect, where I did GRC implementation work and building AWS infrastructures and having some opportunity to do some work in the cloud. And now I'm here at Google as a privacy engineer within the privacy, safety, and security group. So I'll probably be doing some security work in the future as well.
That is awesome. It is a different journey as you begin, but definitely gives you all of the skills that you need to move forward. Lara, can you give us a little bit of background of yourself too?
Sure. I actually had also had a non-traditional entry into the world of cybersecurity. When I finished high school, I pursued my undergrad degree in gerontology, which is about as far away as you can get from the security world. However, when it came time to enter the employment market, there were some governmental policy changes that made it that I wouldn't be able to pursue the career I wanted without getting a nursing degree. So my parents freaked out and were like, "You need to get a job." So off I went to college. And took a local area network administration certificate, which launched me into what I was hoping would be a viable career choice, at least in the eyes of my parents. So when I first graduated, I worked for a small engineering company where I had to manage and support everything that plugged into a wall and ran on a computer. So I was taking care of firewalls to websites. But it was great training ground, and I learned never to say no to anything. Anything that will help you develop a new skill is valuable in this industry. So I've worked for large enterprises ever since moving to KW in 1999, and I've worked in both insurance and tech. Anything from third level support to finishing off the more technical part of my career being a mid-range server admin. But when I had kids, I decided I wanted to get off that pager that I was tied to 24/7, 365. And I moved into a business analyst role. So from that point, I then sort of grew into a security role, getting assigned everything that was associated with security that nobody else wanted to do. OpenText is a data company, and one of the most sought after assets these days is data. So it's our responsibility to protect that customer data and the privacy of the data that our customers trust to us. So here I am today in the world of cybersecurity.
All right. Thank you, Laura, for all. You know what? I think all of us have had different paths to where we are today, but that makes us a little bit more aware of all the surroundings around us. So, thank you for that. Lisa, if you can jump in and give a little bit of info about yourself as well.
Sure. Thank you for having me on the panel. Like the others, I landed in cybersecurity through a somewhat non-traditional path as well. I did start in tech, though. I had a bachelor's in computer science, software engineering from Western University. It was well over 20 years ago, and I've been in many data network operations and leadership roles over the last 20 years, including TD, IBM, BlackBerry, Sandvine, and now Arctic Wolf. But each role over the last 20 years has taught me something about the cyber profession, which kind of led me here. So at TD, I learned about risk adversity and security importance, and they invested in a lot of tools, and it was wonderful. At IBM, I learned about compliance and security audits and disaster recovery and the importance of backups. At BlackBerry, I learned about incident management, responding to breaches and operational issues. Sandvine, I was fortunate to be the global leader of the customer support organization and understood how to operate teams from 10 different countries and the importance to customers of your product and how you have to really listen to them. And then at Arctic Wolf, I had the ability to build the SOC, which is the Security Operations Center, and be able to protect and respond to customers, and learned all about best practices in cyber, the importance of threat intelligence, detections, recruiting, retaining, and even scaling those cybersecurity engineers. So I grew a passion over these years of all things cyber. And Arctic Wolf is a cyber security company whose mission is to end cyber risk. And I've had the opportunity to build out the Security Operations Center, as I had mentioned, and the processes, and operationalize the function over the last 4 years, and built a wonderful team that's been delighting in protecting our customers. It's been a really quite an incredible journey here.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. You know what? I would say all of us had non-traditional paths of trajectory. For myself, I am a practicing attorney in the US. Have not practiced in probably 15 plus years. But with that being said, that led me in the side of a lot of things with regards to data privacy and security, and led me more in a consulting role as well. So I can understand, being with the professional services of Deloitte, KPMG, also with small and medium-sized businesses, and now here at Rogers, leading a team, specifically everything that falls under Internet of Things and digital transformation and security is a major component, and cybersecurity definitely is a major component of that as well. So I think whatever we do as we are going through our career path always gives us a little bit of advantage and step to that next path moving forward. So that's a great thing. So let's transition to, the next question. Let's talk about the importance of diversity and how a diverse mindset can help enhance cybersecurity or technology as well on a whole. And can you each talk about why diversity matters in this sector? Why representation is important to you and your organization. So Lisa, we'll start with you.
Sure. If you even just start by looking at the statistics, according to New York Times, back in November of last year, there was about 3.5 million unfilled cyber roles globally. That's a lot. That's a lot of open roles, and that's a lot of competition. For employers, right? So, and then if you look at other stats like BCG.com, really having a diverse leadership team actually equates to about 1.7 times more innovation from that company. And 67% of job seekers are looking for diversity on the leadership team when they're interviewing. So another stat is 19% higher revenues are found for diverse leadership. In comparison to other companies that didn't have that diversity. So if you couple these stats with the shortage of talent to fill the roles, the only way you're going to fill your roles successfully will be to, looking at a diverse talent pool and what the diverse candidates offer. If you get this right, you're going to have a high employee retention, and that really helps you as a company. So, if the solutions that come back from a diverse team that have different backgrounds, maybe ethnicity, gender, prior professions or experience, that's going to give you a more unique and comprehensive solution to problems over less diverse teams, right? So in the SOC at Arctic Wolf, we have a very diverse leadership team that solves problems much more effectively than any other teams that I've led in the past over my career. And in addition, it's actually really reflective and representative of our team members. So then there's inspiring, stories and leadership teams because they look and they see the visible career paths from all walks of life, and they're in the leadership position. So that really helps build, the reason and the why behind why is it so important to us.
Okay, well, thank you. Talia, do you have any insight that you can lend to the listeners and audience today?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Lisa, for highlighting those stats. I think it's really important to note how huge the security talent gap is. I think the importance of diversity in this space is critical. When you think about bad actors, they're not going through any traditional path for education. They're not particularly fall in one demographic, gender, race, or otherwise. And so for that mere reason, this space needs to be make up a very diverse perspective, diverse cultural, backgrounds and sectors, and how we approach different solutions in this space. So that's one. Another thing is when I'm personally interviewing with organizations, I take note of who I'm interviewing with, right? Because representation is also very important to me. And it also is an indicator for me about what the growth opportunities may be like for someone who looks like me. And so if you want to attract diverse talent, then organizations will have to be very intentional about what their leadership team or what their recruiting team look like, and how much of a diverse perspective you are providing from a cultural perspective, right? And one of the reasons why, as also as a founder of Black Girls in Cyber, I realized there's a lack of awareness for a lot of folks who look like me about what the opportunities are in this space. And so I think if organizations do their due diligence with helping to create more representation, partnering more strategically with minority groups in order to help solve for the diversity challenge, I think all of that bring great rewards, right? And for diverse groups, representation matter because it's empowerment. If I don't see anyone who look like me, I'm least likely to share my thoughts and my ideas and be a contributing member of the team, because you don't feel as empowered in some cases. And so I think it's very important to take note of all of these things and how you can enhance your organization by bringing all of these diverse thoughts together.
You know what? That is very true, and I understand that as well. So, Lara, can you add even more insight or some things that you've seen on your end, to the question?
Yeah, I think diverse teams means diverse mindsets, which the other two panelists have pointed out as well. And if you have diverse mindsets and different perspectives, it often changes the problem-solving approach, right? No one person can often see the whole picture. If you have more people with different backgrounds, have had different learning opportunities in the past, it makes solving problems easier. OpenText as a company, we have many diverse teams and a management team that's very supportive in ensuring that many voices are heard. So it's great to work with senior management teams that are encouraging of this part of the workplace, right? We often pull different functional teams together in order to solve problems as well. So, and with the difficulty in attracting and retaining people with technical skills these days in like engineering and security, it certainly helps if your own team members feel supported in their own career initiatives, right? Because they'll then network and hopefully help you develop your pipeline of future talent. So pipeline of future talent is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. I have 2 teenagers, and I'm constantly telling my daughter over and over again that, there is no opportunity in this world that she can't, conquer, right? So and my son as well, but he's attracted a little more to the maths and sciences sometimes than she is. But she's, I see it in my own home, and I encourage the exact same thing within my own teams at work. So I like the line that I learned at Grace Hopper, because I was lucky enough to go to the Grace Hopper convention a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. If you see one, you can be one. So, we need to encourage companies to provide opportunities to everybody, so that, it will encourage people in the future to also want to enter the profession, because it is intimidating if you can't look around and see other people like you, in the office and sitting at the table. So
Agreed. And I can relate in a lot of ways because, I've been at Rogers for under a year, so I'm learning all of the different groups and associations that they're involved with. But Rogers also promotes, cybersecurity cohorts and diverse communities. And one thing that I'm a part of and great to hear about is like Rise for Women and Women in Technology, and connecting with other associations out there that promote within, say, the Indigenous or Black professional technology communities, or inclusion and diversity. So that, introduces people to that career in technology, whether it's cybersecurity specifically, privacy, IoT, whatever it might be. And one thing I personally take ownership with is I'm part of a organization that too has Leaders of Tomorrow, and it's targeting high school students across Ontario, and just showing them that they too can come into a world that they might not know much about, and see people who represent themselves. So that's always a good thing. So with that being said, and understanding the importance and impact, because everything is about impact, we need to build a cybersecurity workforce. So Lara, what types of outside jobs or skills translate well into the cybersecurity or technology sector on a whole?
Well, the core security is about protecting the confidentiality and the integrity and the availability of data, right? And there's no real one way of doing that. So, it's important to have a curious mind. That's a skill that, you know, translates well into the security space, because the bad guys, as we like to term them, you know, are generally a step ahead of you. So you need somebody who's always wanting to learn and you know, figure out what the next, you know, where are the trends coming within the industry, right? People who understand human behavior and how other people think is always important as well. People who are able to do data analysis, that's very integral to security, because you want to look at trending and you know, we tend to deal in data all day, so you know, it's important to have people that can help parse through that. So if maybe it's not a traditional security role, but you definitely would fit within the security organization, right? And to that point, I just wanted to say, not all security jobs are people in dark hoodies trying to hack through networks, right? So there's jobs where people are, you know, working with control functions such as compliance or business continuity functions, functions that are related to other roles that might sit outside of security, but would be your entry point into getting into the security space.
Great. You know what? That is good. There's so many extensions. And I think that's one thing we try to let the people coming into the industry is that it's not just one thing. As you said, it's not the dark hoodie, undercover dark room type of environment. There's so many avenues that you can be a valid contributor to. So, you know, Talia, I think I'll pose this question to you. And how can government or academia help create a pipeline for diverse talent?
Yes, I believe, well, one, I think government is positioned very strategically to build a diverse talent because, I mean, it's no surprise that it's a very competitive market, right? Retainment is a huge issue, regardless of who you are or what your demographic is. Private sectors tend to pay a lot more, and so the government in general sometimes have a big challenge with retainment. Now, when you think about partnering with academia, you have an opportunity to engage early career transitioners or have influence on the different path that folks will take in their studies. So when you think about like curriculum development or what are the key skills, internship opportunities, which I see a lot of that happening across, you know, federal governments like the NSA and CISA, they're doing a lot of work to create more internship and job opportunities, engaging in different type of university career fairs and partnering with different types of organization to kind of bridge the gap. I think very similarly, small business have a similar advantage, right? Because typically you may not have these large amounts of financial resources to support top talent, but you have an opportunity to bring someone in, you know, in some cases, maybe train them up or partner with whether it's the government or academia to tap into some of these potential candidates as well. So that's where I see some of the creating of pipeline and to help solve for the diverse talent gap, I think would be beneficial.
You know what, Talia, I agree with you. There are many opportunities for small businesses, specifically, I would say in the Ontario area, that can tap in with various levels of colleges and universities, and government funding is given to kind of subsidize some of the income, you know, so small businesses can get some of this talent as well. So there are many opportunities. You just have to probably go to local institutions and create some sort of relationship there. So, you know what, I would also, you know, pose a question to Lisa, and it's really about once you go through that recruitment process, what are some of the strategies for retaining a diverse or retaining diverse talent on a whole?
Yes, thank you. I can't stress this enough. Your culture really matters, right? Your team, and the organization, they really need to support, foster, and grow that diverse talent. It's an everyday intentional decision that you need to make as a leadership team, as a company, as a business unit, as a peer, as an advocate, as an ally. Seeing a career path of diverse team members is critical to walking the walk as an employer. We have buy-in and sponsorship of diversity and inclusion initiatives at the very senior leadership level at Arctic Wolf, and it drives awareness, education, and really to make traction towards the greater good of diverse culture. We've also partnered and contribute, so part of the recruitment process, but then also really contributing to different not-for-profit groups, such as like WESIS, which is Women in Cybersecurity, Blacks in Tech, Blacks in Cyber, as Talia mentioned earlier even. They're all excellent sources of partnerships where, as a company, if you can support and contribute to the development of members of these organizations, really walking the walk and being part of that will help you as an employer. Building an open and safe culture is absolutely key. Understanding each team member's individual strengths and partnering them with others with different strengths to solve problems, stretch assignments. I know the BlackBerry panel earlier had mentioned stretch assignments for team members. It's really a great way to support and grow the cyber talent that you have within your organization. And then at Arctic Wolf, we also developed a certification program that enables us to support the entire team's career growth and progression. And then, it builds to have a long and fulfilling career with us, not just a job, it's a career. We want them for their career. And then like the mentorship opportunities, I mean, there's so many things you can do. It has to be part of the culture. So doing all the work to get diverse team members in the door, it will be all for naught if you can't retain them and if your culture is subpar. So to me, it's a key strategic differentiator as a company.
Okay, that's very true. And, the key words of digital transformation and innovation and all of these different things, they're leading the industry. And we understand like cybersecurity from maybe about 10 years ago, it had about 11% diverse workforce, and it's increased a little bit to 24%. But the question is how, how do we get a little bit more influence in that area so that you have that representation? So Talia, like with that being said, within cybersecurity, it has about a 0% unemployment rate. So yet there's a talent shortage. What are some of the barriers to inclusion that reduce the talent pool? And what do you think needs to be done to correct this?
So when I think about inclusion, I kind of think twofold, right? So internally, inclusion, to me means I feel seen, I feel valued. It's a safe space for me to be very open and honest and to contribute my thoughts and ideas. And a lot of organizations struggle with this, right? But I think it's very important to establish a culture where you encourage your leaders to have a very open space where team members can contribute, right? There is more than one way to achieve a solution. And so if you are able to train your leaders, because typically it comes from the top, that kind of messaging, to how they lead their teams to be very inclusive. And people want to know that if they work hard, that it will take them somewhere. So let's be honest about that. What you find is a lot of security professionals will jump from jobs to jobs because it's like a blocker. They don't see an opportunity to grow, so they go somewhere else so they can grow. And so you'll have to be very unique in how you cultivate these different opportunities for growth and advancement, right? And then on the flip side of that, when you think about the talent gap, you want to make sure you're not sticking to one typical way of recruiting or one typical type of people that you would like to recruit, right? Because as we all mentioned, we've all started in very non-traditional paths. And so if you're going to the same type of universities to recruit, or if you are, doing the same things, you're going to yield the same results. So I know a lot of recruiters say they have challenges with finding diverse talent. Well, it's not something you do one time and then the problem is solved. You literally have to bake it into your culture and your approach to the way you conduct your business. So you have to stand up a program that is continuous, that will continuously be evaluated and monitored to see and put some metrics in place, and create opportunities for employees to provide feedback. So that's my take on that.
And that is absolutely true. Sometimes you need to change up the game a little bit instead of doing the same repetitive thing over and over again with regards to recruitment. Change it up in the sense of getting that diverse team, that diverse. And diversity is not only about inclusion and all of these, but maybe different schools, maybe all of these different things that are in there. So in essence of time, I'm going to give you a little bit more opportunity to talk about what best practices or advice you would give a company who's thinking about building a team for cybersecurity or privacy. So I will start with Lara on this one, and if you are able to give us some insight there.
Sure. Yeah. So I think at the core, you need to understand, what are you trying to protect? What is the value of that asset to your company? Are there legal or legislative requirements for protection of that asset? And the best security is a security in depth approach, multiple layers protecting that core asset. And multiple minds coming from diverse backgrounds, can help you determine then, what are the best layers of protection. The goal is to make it too difficult to get to an asset that it's not worth their time. So, if you can also work as a company to build a good pipeline of people who are interested in the profession, and help them to develop those skills, that's going to be the recipe to success. Understanding your assets, how to protect them, and having the right people in place to do it.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, are you able to give some insight on that same question?
Sure. So there's a ton of resources online to kind of help businesses know where to start. And so like my perspective would be start there. There's cybergc.ca has a resource library online to help businesses, know where to start. CISA.gov, I know Talia also mentioned something earlier. SANS has a pretty good starting point as well. But implementing small items with your IT department, such as like two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, MFA, little steps towards the right things will make your security that much stronger and improve your security posture. I know Lara had mentioned, protecting your critical assets and security, having, depth there. You can also partner with companies that may be able to take off some of the heavy lifting off as you're building it out. So a managed security services provider can help fill some gaps in skills or experience that you may not have. There's companies you can hire virtual CISOs as they grow, and it'll help you kind of build out a roadmap of where you can develop and maybe improve your own security posture.
Okay, thank you. And Talia, do you have any insight that you can lend here as well?
Yeah, just to add to what Lisa and Laura said, having a great GRC program, I think, is a good place to start, because it's going to give you a lot of insight into what your needs are and help you to kind of scale back on wasting resources a bit. And you can literally outsource that. So for small business, and maybe challenging to do that internally, but you can outsource, have a consulting firm come in and conduct some assessments based on what are the regulatory requirements, what are some internal business requirements that may be applicable to the way you do business, and start to create some baselines and then just build from that over time. So I think that's the best approach, because through doing these things, you're able to identify where your needs are from a talent perspective. And then you can start to outsource some of these reports to help build a more strategic roadmap for how you build talent, how you scale your programming over time. So that would be my advice to small business, is to start there, getting someone who can come in and do that for you.
Okay, that's really great advice. And we have about 5-6 minutes left with this, great discussion that is happening, and I know we've basically just scraped the surface, and there's a lot more to cover. But before we wrap up, I just wanted each of you to take the floor and give some final thoughts or takeaways that you would like to leave the attendees today. So, Talia, are there any sort of best practices, thoughts that you would like to lend the team that's listening on today?
Yeah, no, well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to share. I think just for organizations, just be intentional about the work that you're doing, and just be consistent with it. I think diversity of thought is a really key area that is kind of undervalued in a lot of organizations. And I would say, I would encourage folks to foster a culture where you can encourage more diversity of thought. And the way that looks like in practice will be a lot of transparency. A lot of times we tend to work in silos in our orgs because we're focused on our thing, that we need to execute against. But if you create a culture of collaboration, creating more transparency and inclusion, I think that's how you foster a culture that welcomes diversity of thought, and it just enriches your organizations, because you will be surprised about the skills and the knowledge that some folks have within your org that may not be particularly tasked with what their job is. And so I think that would be one of my takeaways to the folks watching today.
Okay. And Lara, be able to answer this one as well.
Yeah. I always go back to kids. I'm a big believer in, because I think kids have this natural curiosity, and they tend to not see the roadblocks that a lot of adults do. So I'm a big fan in companies who are, partnering with, education, et cetera, right? Like, let's get the kids raised up to the point that they don't even see blockers anymore. That's something that I think is important, right? They don't look at it with the lens of an adult. So, if small companies have the opportunity, to help, you know, um, foster some local talent, or anywhere they're located, amongst their own children in their cities, wherever. Sorry, I think somebody pinged me for work and now I'm distracted, so I apologize. But education's important. Like, I often tell my kids that I get paid. They're like, "What do you do, Mom?" And I'm like, "Well, I get paid to figure out what could go wrong and make sure it doesn't." So, and they find that a really interesting concept, right? So, I try to sell the idea to kids, and now they're in high school. I talk to their friends about it. I'm trying to foster amongst kids heading out into their next post-secondary education. Like, these are things you can think about, right? Like, because people are like, "I don't like computers, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that." Well, it's not all computer based. Like I said, it's not all everybody sitting in hoodies in dark rooms doing things that we shouldn't be doing. So that's a big part of it. And I think anybody who's listening, whether you're going to build a cybersecurity team or not, socializing that idea with your own kids, and sending people out into the world as good citizens who genuinely have interests of people in the community at heart, and then in turn the best interests for protection of data assets, et cetera. That's going to help us all in the long term. So sorry, I'm rambling a bit. Like I said, I apologize. I got distracted with work questions, which is
No worries. But thank you for that, Lara.
I think that will help us build diverse workforces where people, genuinely feel engaged and interested. So, which is a good long-term goal.
Okay, thank you. And Lisa, if you can just take the next minute just to wrap up of some of the things that you would like as a takeaway for everyone today.
Sure. So thanks again for having me. I think the most important thing is you just have to start. Okay, you have to be intentional, as Talia had mentioned, but you have to start. Each small step forward is important to improving your security posture, your diversity, your partnerships. The list goes on. And if you get this right, it'll be a game changer for you and your company. This is not going to be an overnight success story. It's going to take a lot of intentional time and effort and conscious decision. I liken it to getting back to the gym and a regular routine after a 10-year hiatus. Um, Intentionally growing your talent pool and doing so in a diverse way will be your secret power as a company. And this community of professionals is very small. You want to be the company that people want to gravitate to, not run away from. So that's my thoughts.
You know what? I can't agree with all of you more. So I'm just going to say plain and simple. These are the things that the takeaways from today. It's time to act. That's the main one. So, spread the word or break stereotypes of change and perception. Initiate and engage directed efforts to recruit diverse groups. Create an opportunity or a path that is more affordable to whichever group it is, whether it is of a BIPOC community, women, other many inclusive environments that are there as well, and attract and engage through equitable environment. Whether you're a small or a large organization, you can provide mentorship network and provide access to resources, or you have the ability to get access to funding in various government institutions and contribute and support the community on a whole. So it's been an absolute pleasure for me to be here. I will caveat, I'm on vacation, and the ladies know on the panel that I'm dialing in from Jamaica. So thank you for joining me today. And I'd like to again thank Lisa, Talia, and Lara for spending time and sharing your experiences and wonderful insights. And I'm sure, just like myself, everyone who has been listening has learned a lot and hopefully can share some of the best practices within your businesses. So have a wonderful day, rest of, for everyone who is engaged. So thank you. And I am going to welcome Ian Mclean back to the stage.
Well, thank you so much. Fascinating discussion, and Desiree, great job. I know we were joking around getting ready for this that the beach was pretty close, but thank you for taking time to do such a great job moderating. Some great takeaways for everyone that's watching today. Thanks again to Lara, Talia, Lisa, and Desiree for such a fantastic session today. Amazing group. It's been a great morning, great sessions to start. I really appreciate your attention to these important topics. As a reminder, if you did miss any of the morning sessions, we will be and wish to share the information with colleagues or others. Recordings of all the sessions today will be shared with you following the event. We're now going to take a short coffee and networking break. The main stage will resume in about 20 minutes. Please do make your way to the expo and networking areas, talk with some of our great sponsors and partners, and we'll see you back here soon. Thanks so much. Well, welcome back to the main stage. We hope you enjoyed your networking break and had a chance to connect with the exhibitors that we have in the expo. Thank you once again to the following exhibitors for being with us today and partnering with us: BlackBerry, Rogers, KPMG, Google, the University of Waterloo, Reese Informatica, Conestoga College, and Porchlight Relocations. Next up on the main stage, we have James Tantrum, Director of Rogers Data Center Product Management at Rogers. James is accountable for the performance, strategy, and of Rogers co-location, cloud, and managed services offers. Rogers Data Centers accelerates Canada's digital transformation through the design, deployment, and management of multi-cloud and edge computing solutions that ensure workloads are optimally placed to achieve a harmonized balance of cost, performance, control, and elasticity, while remaining always connected and secure. So important for every business, in particular, small and medium size. So please join me in welcoming James Tantrum.
Thanks so much, Ian. I hope everyone can hear me. We've got about 10 minutes today to do a very brief primer on cybersecurity and ransomware specifically. So let's jump in. And promise there'll be no jargon. This is going to be super high level and really in layman's terms, things that we can action and take away and begin implementing tomorrow. So a little bit of just a state of Canada's sort of business preparedness for disasters. And remarkably, 55% of Canadian businesses actually lack a comprehensive data protection and disaster recovery plan. So I'll let that sort of sink in for a minute. When we just think about the increased threats and vulnerabilities that exist out there today, we are very exposed. And so we need to be doing more as an industry and doing more as businesses to protect really the integrity of our data and the integrity of our businesses from what increasingly is a sort of hostile world, if you will, in terms of our data assets. If you walk away with anything today, I really want to ensure that everybody has a good understanding of what are often thought of as two interchangeable concepts and terms, but actually serve two very different purposes. And those two terms are the concept of disaster recovery and the concept of backups. And so the question that I most often hear in the data protection domain is, do I need a disaster recovery plan? Do I need backup? Or do I need both? And so, the general answer is you're going to need both. And the reason for that is quite simple. Think of disaster recovery as a scenario where you always have two identical laptops sort of ready to go and perfectly synchronized. And so the use case or the sort of recovery scenario here is, well, what if one of your laptops fails? You've got a hardware failure, you lose it or you break it, something of that effect. Well, you can then immediately switch to using that second laptop. So you can get up and running again with the minimum amount of loss of time and data. The reason you still need a backup sort of posture and a backup strategy, it lies in the fact that those are two identical laptops. And so what that means is if you've got corruption of a file, you've got loss of data, well, that loss of data will be applied instantly to that second laptop or that disaster recovery instance. That's where backup as a service comes into play. And so what backup really refers to is the, essentially having multiple point-in-time copies of data that are discrete and separate from each other. And so that's going to be really key when we think about ransomware, that ability to go back in time and recover data that effectively is secure, that has integrity. And so that's why the two are really required. So what is ransomware? Ransomware, very simply, it's a malicious attack where some third party looks to encrypt or restrict access to critical data and systems. The reason ransomware has generally been so effective or is so disruptive is a modern ransomware attack effectively goes through an organization's entire network. And so it looks for multiple data sources, it looks for multiple files across different systems, across different computers, and it essentially, it attacks and goes after all that data, and then at a point in time sort of turns it all off and makes it unavailable. And so really the impact of ransomware to a business is at a point in time, complete loss of access to data and to applications. So generally a very significant event. Are we vulnerable? And so the sort of question now is more around when and not so much if. There's a lot of money involved, obviously, in ransomware. Attackers are sophisticated. They are well funded. And as we've known over the last couple of weeks with the situation in Ukraine, in many cases, it is state sponsored. The amount of money and the reward in ransomware, kind of ensures that these conditions will continue. The impact of ransomware, of course, is it's multidimensional. So you've got that initial direct impact, the loss of data and systems. But of course, in the back of our minds, we know that our data has been accessed. And so the integrity of our data is now under question. We know that our data now has been, it's been breached. It's sitting in someone else's hands. And so what can that attacker potentially do with that data? And so, when you look at the compounded impact of this, it can be pretty significant. If we look at over the last 12 months, about 76% of organizations have experienced some type of cyber attack or ransomware attack. So the prevalence is pretty extraordinary. So what are some of the things that we can do? And again, I'm going to stray from technology here. Just there's very simple things that we can do. We want to reduce the risk and the impact of these attacks. We want to mitigate sort of the impact if we are attacked and we do become sort of a victim of ransomware. And then most importantly, we just want to have a very simple response plan. If we are impacted, we know what to do and we know who is going to do it in that situation. So reducing risk and impact, this is really about trying to prevent and mitigate ransomware sort of taking root within an organization or a business. The most common way that ransomware is introduced is through social engineering. We have all been sort of a victim of a phishing email, a phishing scam. The subject line is "you will never guess" or "we saw you," whatever that email subject is, and there's an attachment that you click on. That is, generally the vehicle in the path that ransomware is introduced. So ensuring that each of us know the risks of opening sort of those personal emails and personal attachments at work, it's just not worth it, right? So we try and cut off that social engineering aspect. We also want to look at how do we reduce the attack surface. In our increasingly always on, always connected world, PCs and networks are, almost always interconnected and somewhat flat. And so what we want to do is reduce the attack surface where we can segregate and separate networks, separate PCs. That just reduces the overall scale and impact of these ransomware attacks. And then finally, endpoint protection, not just antivirus, but anti-malware, email scanning and so on. We need to invest and ensure that this protection is everywhere. It guarantees really a very robust return on investment. So these are things that we can no longer go without. So I promised just some very simple sort of actions. For many of us, we'll sort of remember a world where storage used to be on consumable media, whether it was cassette tapes, for music, on tapes for data, or more recently on SD cards for photos and videos. There's something kind of common and shared across all of these media is that they have what's known as immutability. And what that is, it's the write protect tab that they have that makes it impossible to change data once it's written. And so, people will recall on their cassette tapes, there was a little notch you would cut out. There was a tab on your tape backups. And SD cards have a little tab you flip up or down. Why is this so relevant? Why is it important? Well, when we've got data that's immutable, meaning write protected, ransomware can't get in and it can't make changes to this data. And so remarkably, what's actually happening in the industry is several years ago, we thought that tape would no longer be part of a data recovery or backup strategy. Well, tape is returning because of its immutability. And so there's a very simple set of rules that we can follow to help protect ourselves from data loss. And that's known as the 3-2-1 rule. And so to protect data, we should always have 3 copies of our most valuable data. We should be storing it on at least 2 different media. So tape and spinning disk as an example. We should always have 1 copy that is off-site. And that's really to mitigate against loss of a physical location or theft. And then really there's 2 new rules that have been introduced to sort of help mitigate against threats like ransomware. One is that one of those copies is immutable. So that write protection, meaning it's not susceptible to ransomware. And the final is really that we are ensuring that we've got integrity in our backups. And so periodically we're going in and we're ensuring that we can recover our data, and the data that we're recovering does have the integrity that we want. It's the proper data set that we're after to recover. And then really the last phase to sort of surviving ransomware is just having a response plan. So, as I've kind of alluded to, a couple of fun facts about ransomware. Once you're attacked and once your data starts to become encrypted, that data can actually now become part of your backup set. So meaning that encrypted data actually enters into your backup and into your backup files, that's where that immutability becomes critical, because we know we've always got a data set that lived or existed before that ransomware attack, and that it is unencrypted and recoverable from. Another thing that we often see is if we start seeing big changes in our data, well, that's typically a symptom or evidence of a ransomware attack. So if I'm suddenly seeing changes in my files, recently changed or recently modified, that can be an indication. We also, when we do a recovery, we've got to go back before the attack. So, our recovery point may be some time ago. And so, what do we do before recovering? Well, there's a couple things we need to do in our sort of recovery checklist. We want to be able to know what data was compromised. We also want to know what systems were compromised and make sure that they're isolated. Before we start bringing data back online, we want to be recovering that into an environment that is separate from our production systems or our sort of active systems. And at the end of a ransomware sort of attack and recovery, we want to do that post-incident review to really understand what the root cause was. Something that we always need to recognize: attackers come back, thieves come back. So, in sort of the physical world, the best playbook for a thief is, they'll steal the old computers. They'll come back in 6 months because they know there's going to be new computers there that are potentially more valuable. And so it's the same sort of, steps that a ransomware thief comes. They come back because they think there'll be more value in that second attack. And so what are some of the products and services that managed security providers and managed services providers offer? Rogers, professional services, data protection services, managed backup, as well as just assessment in terms of your recoverability and your data protection plans, are all capabilities that Rogers and other managed services providers offer. And so these are great ways, if we lack the in-house expertise, to build and develop our own robust data protection plans. But I hope that some of the tips and tricks that I've shared today sort of help us begin to prepare and mitigate some of these risks. So I think that's the final slide, and we've probably got a couple minutes here for any questions and answers.
Yeah, listen, that was great, James. And I guess one of the things that when we were talking just before you went on is many, or if not most, SMEs don't have IT expertise that you would have described there on staff. And so it can be overwhelming on what to do and where to get started. But I always say, because we fall into that, we've got 18 staff, so we have managed service and we have folks that are expertise outside of the chamber staff. But crossing your fingers and hoping it doesn't happen to you is not a wise strategy, because it's probably not a question of if it hasn't happened already, it probably is. So how do you prepare for that? So maybe just I know we're tight for time, but maybe just to wrap up, what would be the top 2 or 3 things for an SME to prepare? Yep. And then what happens when something happens?
So I think, first of all, it's just having that plan in place. And so having not just the protection, but the recovery plan, that's the first sort of course of action. The second really is if you are compromised and either your recovery plan doesn't work or you didn't have one, there are managed services organizations that help you navigate sort of the recovery of that data. And so, these are things that are sort of difficult for us to navigate if we're not experienced. But, if you've got to go and you do need to pay that ransom, they'll help orchestrate, the payment through Bitcoin. They'll help sort of negotiate with those ransomware providers or attackers and so on. So that would be the second thing is perhaps, research and have front of mind someone that can support you in that recovery, right? And then I think just in the moment, it is to get all of your critical systems isolated and offline to ensure that the attack isn't sort of continuing to, sort of percolate through your systems and IT infrastructure. So those are probably the best advice that I could provide.
Awesome. Listen, thanks so much, James. Really appreciate you and the gang from Rogers helping us with this series and being so helpful with your time and expertise. Appreciate your time today.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
All right, we are on to the final panel to close out today's program, Hacking the Hire for Small Businesses. Whether you're looking to outsource your cybersecurity needs, train your team on basic protection strategies, or hire an internal cybersecurity professional, we'll hear from industry experts on the best practices for these areas. Our first panelist, Doug Grofield, President and CEO of Five9's IT. Doug was named as one of the top 100 executives of 2016 and is recognized as one of the top 25 disruptors in the global technology space, leading the charge beyond traditional IT challenges and revolutionizing the market. Long considered a tech evangelist, Doug is a sought-after speaker as a thought leader in areas such as cybersecurity, cloud technologies, and business continuity disaster recovery. As President and CEO of Five9's IT Solutions, Doug is bringing the breadth of his experience in the fast-paced world of technological services to bear in introducing another leading-edge IT services company. With his track record of building successful and rapid growth tech services companies, Five9 IT Solutions will continue to provide best-in-class services and technologies to clients' businesses. Next, we have a good friend of the chamber, Tracy Johnson Aldworth, owner and CEO of Trace's Screen Printing. Tracy is a dynamic and inspirational community leader and small business entrepreneur with marketing savvy and dedication to the environment. She is a well-respected volunteer and generous benefactor of many high-profile charitable organizations and events in the Waterloo region. In addition to 35 successful years in the screen printing business, she is a champion of the environment and an award-winning businesswoman both locally and regionally. Tracy is known for her promotional flair, entrepreneurial spirit, and innovative business ideas, and is just a lot of fun too. Next, we have Melissa Parsons, lead auditor and cybersecurity manager with KPMG. Melissa is an ISO 27001 lead auditor and cybersecurity manager with KPMG's risk consulting advisory practice. Her specialization focuses on helping organizations mature their governance, risk and response activities related to cyber and information security. Melissa's past hands-on experience working for private sector technology companies has positioned her well to offer customized, high-value deliverables and quality results for KPMG clients. She has experience evaluating and dealing with third-party vendors, building and implementing enterprise risk management programs, interviewing, hiring, and training staff, in addition to creating organizational security policies for many different types of and sizes of organizations. And we're thankful to moderate this panel is Jennifer Mclean, VP of Operations at ThinkTurn Inc., a technology innovation company with a commitment to give back to the communities in which they serve. After graduating from small business management and entrepreneurial studies at Mohawk and hotel management at Fanshawe, her original career path found her as the general manager of a small hotel property. In 2006, Jen changed her career direction and opened Capital Bookkeeping and Training. She gained experience running her own business as well as working with small and medium-sized companies. A part-time bookkeeping position at Blue Sun Inc., now iPipeline Canada, a software company in the life insurance industry in 2007, developed into a full-time opportunity where Jen moved up through the company in roles including office manager and controller, HR manager, VP customer service, and VP delivery assurance. Early 2018 brought a unique opportunity to build a technology company as a member of the leadership team. So please join me in welcoming Doug, Tracy, Melissa, and Jennifer to the stage. And it always amazes me before you get started, Jennifer, the backgrounds and the career path of everyone here is really unique. And so I think we got a great panel, and I'll pass it over to you. And I know we're a little late, so you guys keep your thing. I think the audience will stick with us for a few more minutes. So really looking forward to this one.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Ian. This panel discussion is meant to be great for businesses of all sizes, but particularly for those small and medium-sized business who really don't know where to start when it comes to protecting their company from cyber threats. Cyber attacks just don't happen for large businesses. They happen to anyone, and we all need to stay vigilant. So we have a lot of great information to share and cover, so let's get started. Melissa, coming to you first, what are some of the key foundational areas of cybersecurity that all organizations should have in place, regardless of their size?
I think generally as a starting point, it's really good just to try to find a framework to start with, right? So really common ones out there that most organizations tend to use is the NIST cybersecurity framework or the ISO 27001 standard. That really kind of gives you a blueprint for where to start. And, and then you can help, that sort of helps with the planning and the creating and establishment of the program. And then also it gives you sort of, again, what to kind of be reporting as far as what metrics would be, and that structure for reporting on a regular cadence to the senior management or executives or the board, right? Once you have that program operationalized. So, that can also help you develop, your key information security policies and give you guidance in that area. And, also cyber insurance, that's critical, right? And coverage is really deeply dependent on the strength of your safeguards in place. And if you think about it from the perspective of, having a 200-year-old home with that old knob and tube wiring, right? Maybe asbestos, faulty ventilation, and an old furnace versus a new build built to today's code, the premiums and coverage is going to look a little different, right?
A very good point there about the existing frameworks. Companies really don't have to start from scratch. There's a lot of experts out there, and there's also a lot of those frameworks existing already that we can take from. Now, Melissa, you mentioned in there policies, and Doug, I'm going to look to you that what kind of policies do you recommend employers have in place for their teams, especially nowadays with the remote workforce?
Well, so first of all, Jennifer, thanks for moderating this, and Ian and all the sponsors at this event today. Thank you. It's a great opportunity, I think, for us to have a never more critically important discussion on cybersecurity. And we all learn from each other every time we collaborate. So it's especially important as we poke our heads out of our 2+ year hibernation in what I think is kind of a dramatically changed world today. So technology, frankly, is the easy-ish part of this. The people are actually by far the more difficult part of the equation. So IT can deploy a ton of technology to better control and protect and analyze the systems and data, but the staff who just need to do their work, they often see us in IT as the work prevention department. So the most successful cybersecurity solutions involve a mix of technology and HR policies, as you alluded to, Melissa, and practices. So acceptable use of technology policies, those are critical to add in either as part of or along with your employment agreements, which I hope everyone has with all of their staff anyway. They go a long way towards ensuring folks that, simply being human doesn't present undue risk from an IT perspective. So I guess a key consideration is an employment of end user awareness training, so that it's a policy within your organization that constant learning has to happen on an ongoing basis, so you can train your users. How do they recognize an attempted breach or a phishing attempt when it pops up in their email inbox before they do something that'll give your IT department, more gray hair?
We never want to give our IT department more gray hair, or hair loss for that matter. Now, obviously with COVID, there's been a huge shift to remote workforces, which changes how you protect a company. Protecting people inside your building is vastly different to protecting them from their homes. And wondering what type of risks and threats, Melissa, you're really seeing now with this new work from home culture.
Yeah, so I think whether it's work from home or in the office, really, people are either your strongest assets or your weakest links, right? and a lot of times at the same time in different areas. So I think, as far as the remote work, having really strong policies, both administratively and technically, right, configured for endpoint protections. Using personal devices. Okay, are there, protections in place so that when folks are rightfully so on their break, right, if they're doing any sort of, home-based activities like shopping or, on their home network, or even, something as, easy as, responding to a seemingly innocuous email or text on their home network, that looks like it's coming from, say, Canadian government. We saw that a lot for COVID-19 themed scams, you know, in the last like couple of years, the CERB phishing emails, the fraudulent text messages claiming they're from the government of Canada to download and install malicious applications, right? So, and of course, just a general uptick of ransomware targeting healthcare, medical, but, you know, in addition to many other impacted sectors and industries. So I think, again, just helping to protect the people from themselves a lot of times is going to also help you protect your organization as well. And, you know, 99.999% of the time, no one's, you know, doing anything with any malicious intention, right? And so, you know, what Doug kind of alluded to too, of having like, you know, strong policies in place, and communication and education, really, really, really key for your personnel, especially working from home.
Amen.
Absolutely. Tracy, you're a small business owner, and you've taken some great steps to protect your business against the cyber attacks. And I was hoping you could kind of share with us, you know, a little bit of your journey and your process of, you know, how did you know you needed to do something, and how has the outcome been through that? What were your successes and challenges?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on. We've had our computer in traces for 30 years. So at the beginning, we honestly didn't know what we were doing. We were like, everybody's saying get AVG or get Norton or get whatever. And we knew that wasn't cutting it, that we were still getting viruses and problems with the computer shutting down. So I probably went through, I'll bet no less than a dozen companies that would come in and would take my information, take them to the next computer. They said they were getting rid of all the viruses, but they weren't. When my IT went down, those people had either disappeared or they couldn't come in for 3 days. So we were shut down. It was an impossible situation. My value to the company is not having giant fights with computer companies that should be giving me good service. So ultimately, I now have a provider that does my IT, one, to make sure that I'm up all the time, everything's running all the time, and I have full cybersecurity. It is not a very expensive process. It covers all my computers. I know that my employees are actually fairly young and they know what to click on and what not to click on, but I'm not watching them every minute. So if they're doing a little shopping on lunch on our computers, it could easily let a virus in. So I did hire Doug's company many moons ago, and I have a monthly fee that I pay for, one, to keep my cybersecurity up to date. I do not want to be low-hanging fruit. And I don't think anybody, no matter what size company, I never want to get ransomware, because then I know that all the information in my computer is possibly lost or being sold on the dark net. And that's the worst part about ransomware. The other ones are the shutdowns we would have and not understand why our computers were shut down or overloaded, or there were viruses. It was crazy. So basically, I felt that we had a legal obligation to our customers to have good IT. I wanted to be using my time valuably, not monkeying around with computer stuff, nor have my staff doing it. And I think that we wanted everything backed up because we have 30 years of artwork files and they're ginormous. So I'm very happy having that service monthly.
No, absolutely. And that decision to outsource is sometimes a tricky one. You know, it's a lot of small business owners and business owners in general want to do everything themselves. And, you know, finding a vendor and going through that process. And Doug, these are services you provide. And I'm going to come to you and ask you, you know, what should people be looking for? We are finding during COVID, there's a lot of pop-up companies who are claiming they can do everything. How do we cut through that and find a true vendor who can assist small and medium businesses?
Well, believe it or not, it's not quite as difficult as finding a unicorn or Bigfoot. You know, but you have to do your homework because, as you say, there's always somebody, you know, ready, willing, and able, or maybe not necessarily able, but they're certainly willing to take on a new opportunity. So, experience. Did I mention experience? It's you have to look at things like their social media presence. You know, do they provide key information, and do they display involvement in cybersecurity interests beyond just that sale? Why do they choose the vendors that they propose? Do your homework on the vendors involved so that you can make that investment along with them with confidence. So looking at things like Gartner reports and talking to experts and like the folks at KPMG to hold vendors' feet to the fire and find out in their portfolio of products and services that they're presenting to you or proposing to you, does it hold water? So an ounce of prevention is worth far more than a pound of cure in this industry, but it doesn't have to be that way from a cost perspective to do the right thing up front. Mitigation, post-compromise, far more expensive. So does the third party provide services on both sides of the fence, prevention and cure? Because it's, sometimes you have to negotiate with the threat actors. We heard the Rogers keynote speaker talk about negotiating for a successful resolution. You have to be able to speak to that side of it as well, because if bad stuff does happen, in spite of all the precautions you've taken, you need to have a plan B or a plan C to be able to get your data back and ensure that nothing is piggybacking on that to make you a victim the second time because they've left a backdoor for themselves in there.
That prevention versus mitigation. It's always a huge discussion, and we'd rather get you to the prevention phase than having to mitigate an issue, because that can always be very detrimental to a company. Now, when we speak about outsourcing, Melissa, you obviously have a lot of people to come to you to look for, how do I do this? How is it easiest for a company to know whether they should take it in-house or outsource it, and what are some of the cost benefits to making these decisions?
Yeah, so I think that last point, cost benefits, right? That's what really needs to be taken into consideration. It's really dependent on the people, processes, and technology that your organization already has in place, or allocated funds, right? So if you have a budget upcoming that you've put into place on your roadmap and your strategic roadmap, or additional headcount to consider for some major projects or some technical debt, for instance, right? Timelines are also a huge consideration. So if something needs to be done quickly and you just don't have the cycles internally to do that, it may be a good choice to look at outsourcing. But generally for big initiatives, the sort of advice that we tend to give for our clients, and what that we usually take on clients for, to be perfectly honest, is if a certain project, is estimated, say, at like 25% personnel capacity, the duration is maybe less than a year, and it can be achieved using your existing tools, budget, and staff skill sets, right? Then it may not necessarily be worth it to outsource. But if there's a risk that needs to be addressed, or a gap that needs to be addressed that requires maybe 50% personnel capacity, it's longer duration, say maybe a year to 18 months, an organization might want to solicit involvement if from like a professional services firm, if they don't have the cycles in-house and they have the budget for that, right? And then of course, anything above and beyond that, multi-year engagements beyond 24 months, right? Requiring significant planning, and significant investment, whether you do it in-house or not, kind of thing, and that's going to require testing, implementation, fine-tuning, that sort of thing. We absolutely recommend that, especially for small, medium-sized businesses, that you get some help in that area. And a lot of common sort of examples of that would be, very large identity and access management projects, right? Re-architecture, a zero trust implementation, a security operations, like a SOC, right? Does it make sense to hire an entire security operations team for a company of a dozen people? Not really, right? So, yeah.
Definitely. I appreciate you putting measures to that. It's always tricky. A lot of people stop, they hear cybersecurity, they get nervous, and going into that evaluation process of if we can do this, if we cannot do this. And it's important to note that not all of the tasks actually require money. It's important to know there's things you can do that require your time, but not necessarily funding. And with that, Melissa, I'm curious, you commented on having a younger team, which has its advantages and disadvantages. With that, do you provide training or activities? What support do you do to make sure they are aware of the cybersecurity and make sure that they take it seriously?
That question was for me, right?
Yes, no,
Yeah. We don't do a lot of training because we don't have to, because we have 24/7 security. We make sure that there are no links ever left open because we have to go into a lot of suppliers' warehouses chronically all day to find stock, especially during COVID with all the supply chain issues. So basically, I don't have to do a lot of training because I'm covered off with this service. And you guys were talking about outsourcing. And I just want to say, I outsource my bookkeeping, I outsource my HR, and I outsource my cybersecurity. And to tell you the truth, it saved my company a ton of money. So if you're a small company, look at it. It's not near as expensive as you think, and it will put your mind at rest. And of all the things you have to worry about, you won't have to worry about that.
That's very good, very helpful. Outsourcing, we do the same thing for a number of our services and find benefits. We do have an in-house cybersecurity team, which as we've grown, that team grows as well to help with us. With the training, I know we do our training in-house. Melissa, what's your experiences with training? Do you find that there's some good systems out there that we can use with those frameworks? Do you recommend trying to do it yourself? And really, whose accountability should it lie under to do that training activities?
Yeah, it's a touchy subject, I think, depending on who you're talking to, and what the culture of the business is as well. So, I mean, there's folks that will do it in-house. They have dedicated personnel that are, a department, a team that does training, not just cybersecurity, but may, curate course content, that sort of thing for other things like WMIS or, any other sort of AODA training, any other sort of compliance activities that are required. But what we're finding, especially with cybersecurity, it changes so fast that, so if you are leveraging sort of a learning management system, an LMS, and you're creating your own, and then you're assigning it that way, there's thousands of catalogs out there now online that have really, really good pre-vetted content that's updated annually in most cases. Again, you're outsourcing, you want to do your due diligence and make sure, right? Like who's using this and get some references, that kind of thing. But also, if you're doing it in-house, is it scalable? Do you plan on hiring another 500 staff that you have to manually administer this training to? It kind of comes down to, again, what that cost benefit, right? Is it worth paying you're having dedicated roles and positions, or do you want to free those up to do other activities versus could you bring on a training provider or a content provider to automatically assign those using your own authentication and authorization tools, right? And then that really helps too, a lot of times, streamline the onboarding, offboarding, part-time contractors, that need to be assigned as co-ops, that sort of thing. So if you can kind of leverage when you're activating and deactivating those accounts and it's tied to something that's automated, it's great. But again, I think it just depends on the organization and resourcing at the end of the day.
So we've talked a lot about outsourcing. I want to talk about hiring your first security person. And this is a scary thing to do. You're branching out your company, you're moving from small size to mid-size around there. There's a lot of programs at the local schools that offer cybersecurity, et cetera, but you don't necessarily want to go with someone who's junior. Doug, do you have guidance on where you find your people? What type of experience that first employee need to have as you kind of expand to your team instead of outsourcing? What do you recommend?
So one size doesn't fit all in the security space, and things change so dramatically day by day by day. Keeping up with the skill sets and to be able to be meaningful and effective and relevant in this space is an expensive proposition. And there's so many ways to skin the cat that investing in a particular vendor's product lines means that you've got to get certifications and maintain those. And gain levels of expertise and have sales volumes and all these kinds of things as the vendor. If you're a company that's looking to say, which horse do I put my money on? I would say one of the first things you should do, and I know that everybody that's joining this event is doing it through the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, but I think first bit of advice I would say is join your local Chamber of Commerce, wherever that might be. Attend events and get to know your fellow members, because there's going to be, no matter where you are, I know our region is a bit of a bubble for this kind of stuff, but there's going to be lots of choices for IT providers, but not all of them are going to be equal. So for now, I would say forget about, to whom you might pose the questions. Focus on what you're trying to accomplish. You do not want to be a victim. You don't want to lose your business or your clients because they're affected by a breach of your business. So how do you do that? Table stakes. Before you lay your head down to sleep tonight, I would ask that everybody watching this install a product on your mobile devices, your smartphones, something like Sophos Intercept X for mobile. Great product. It's free. They give it away. It'll protect your devices. And as Melissa said, and with a remote workforce over the last 2 years, you've got all these workers spread out with their technology to the four corners of the earth, and they're on their home networks that you can't trust with their kids' smartphones and iPads and everything else. So love me, love my dog. Along with that comes all, whatever is going on their network. So invest in an integrated solution. So find a vendor that would provide an integrated solution for perimeter security, end user awareness training, penetration testing, security auditing, endpoint protection. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this onion once you start peeling it back. And I know some people think that, hey, I've never had a problem before. Why do I need to think about these kinds of things? Well, the bad guy's intent is not to get caught and stopped, right? They want to continue to be able to take advantage and monetize the cybercrime that they're engaging in. So proper backups, encryption, password management. I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about here, and we've got a very short time to talk about these things. So the gentleman from Rogers covered a lot of these areas too, talking about the different things that you need, pieces of the puzzle. But I want to make sure that people understand, don't be discouraged by the complexity or the multitude of choices, the fear of the unknown. Our region has an incredible brain trust in all areas of technology, including cybersecurity. So take that first step, reach out, have a conversation about what cybersecurity means to you and your business, and learn. It's a constant process. So the Chamber of Commerce is actually a great way to find those trusted voices that are also small business people in our region who want to do business long term, not just jump on opportunities.
Yeah, and definitely. And it's hard to step into, and I'll tell you, our team has always been very good about sharing information and educating the team. They've always stuck with 4 primary things to get in place that are deal breakers. And the first is turn on multi-factor authentication for everything. Right. The second is have a password manager. Your Post-it notes and your dog's name and year of birth are not valid passwords. Use the password manager that can auto-generate for you. The third thing they always talk about, that endpoint protection. You need to protect where the users are using the systems. And the last thing is training and education. We had a phishing attempt hit the office. It hit a whole bunch of us. And unfortunately, we did have one team member who was a little bit too busy at the time. She checked it on her phone, is what she did. And unfortunately, she followed through on it. And it wasn't the intent, with all the training. And it's just reminding people sometimes to slow down, which I don't think any of us are good at. We tend to go 1,000 miles an hour at any given time there. And just to remember to slow down and breathe and go, does this make sense? Is always a good thing to do before you respond to something. So we are getting close to our time here. I'm going to ask each of you for kind of your final thoughts on what you want to leave with people today. So Tracy, I'll start with you.
The only thing I could say is, if you're a small business, and I'm a very small business, don't let yourself be aggravated by your IT and your cybersecurity. Just get a fit for it and do it. You'll thank me later.
Very, very true. Absolutely. Doug, over to you.
So I'm probably not going to talk about technology for my final thought. I'm going to talk about people. So people, and I'm guilty of this too. We attend seminars, we attend events, and maybe not so much over the last couple of years in person, but virtually. So we go there with the intent to learn and benefit from the material, the expertise, the opportunity. But then we go back to work and we don't actually do anything, despite whatever notes we may have taken about planning. So take one action, make that first call, get some advice. It just may save your business.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely correct. Melissa, any last thoughts?
I think Tracy brought up a really good point about hiring her bookkeeper, right? If you don't have the expertise in house, or you do have a rec open, you find you're not, getting the quality candidates that you want, just look for, someone to help that's an expert in that field. And, there's no shame in hiring your bookkeeper or accountant, right? Or a lawyer to do that type of work. So, and to really drive home that, at the end of the day, security is everybody's responsibility. And that culture is changing. But, especially I find with small to medium sized businesses, it's a little bit slower because there's still that expectation, I think, placed on, it's, the IT, that's an IT problem, or that's IT's responsibility, or and that is not the case at all. And I think that's where just having that core cybersecurity essentials training is really helpful to share not just information about phishing, right? But just about what are good security hygiene practices that we can all do to limit the risk of our business and keep ourselves safe at the end of the day.
Yeah, I thank all of you for joining us today. It's been fantastic. There's been a lot of information shared, and just kind of to give that quick recap, one, you're not alone is the answer. Every company is going through this right now. There are professionals out there, that whether you employ them or go third party, who can assist you with the existing frameworks that are out there. Melissa had mentioned NIST and ISO as two of them there, which are the most commonly used. We've talked about policies, the combination of IT policies and HR policies to make sure we're setting everybody up for success and their expectations. We've talked education and training, and making sure that there is an awareness out there of what's taking place. And we touched slightly on budget, but the reality is budget is not the be all and end all to your cybersecurity. The more you spend, the more protection you can get, but that doesn't mean that you don't do anything when you don't have a large budget associated to it. There's always ways to work with those small budgets to make sure that you're getting some coverage, to make sure that you're covering your people and your technology. So thank you very much, Tracy, Melissa, and Douglas. I am going to invite back Ian Mclean now to the stage for a couple closing remarks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks.
Well, there we go. And thanks so much. Another great discussion. Really appreciate all of your time and expertise on this critical issue for every business, every size of businesses. And I think the advice at the end and bringing it all together is really important for everyone listening in, and that we'll watch this virtually as we know many do after the fact. So thank you, Jennifer, once again for moderating this discussion. And to all our speakers and sponsors for joining us today. Cybersecurity is an important topic that we all need to be vigilant about. We need to start thinking about, and we'll continue this type of session on an ongoing basis, because with over 1,650 members, most of whom are small and medium-sized business, we all have a lot of work to do to make sure that we're protecting our data, which in most cases is our business. Before we do close out our event, I would like to take a moment to thank our incredible sponsors once again. To BlackBerry, to Neha and Tyler and Rogers, to James and Desiree, our sponsors, Google, KPMG, and the University of Waterloo, our bronze sponsor, OpenText, and our event sponsor, Reese Informatica. If you're looking for more networking opportunities, the Chamber has a full calendar of upcoming events on our website and at thegreaterkwchamber.com. We're slowly starting into in-person events in the next number of weeks into May, but we also are continuing with virtual and hybrid events. We will also be hosting a free weekly session, which we have for the last 2 years, the Manulife Business Success Series, which is held every Wednesday at 1 p.m., exploring timely topics and providing resources to businesses, helping them to learn, adapt, and grow as an organization. Thanks once again to all of our sponsors, our speakers, and also to you for attending today's event. We appreciate your support of the Chamber, and we hope to see you at another event soon. Thanks so much and have a great afternoon.